valued viewers, welcome back to the UT Guitar YouTube channel. We've got an awesome amp. We've never had one of these on the channel. So this is a Princeton 6G2. So this is actually the brown face era Princeton, but it's a Tuxedo model, which is killer. So if you don't know what that means, it's fairly self-explanatory, but it's got the black face panel and these cool white cupcake style knobs, but it is a brown face circuit inside, 6G2. I don't know what year it is, but this will be probably 64 if I had to guess, early 64. It's kind of typically when you see these features. And yeah, you notice no logo either. So let's go ahead and flip it around. So on the back side, we can see more of the same. Nice, pretty good condition on the exterior. Tolex is looking pretty good overall. And this is really the big main piece. So you can see it's got a two-prong still. Owner thinks it might be all original inside. He's not sure. He's never had it worked on, and he's owned it for a while, I believe. You can check out the speaker. I probably can't really see. It's a little dark. Let me brighten it up for you guys a little bit. Get a little bit better view there. Don't see any codes from my perspective. Probably in Oxford if I had to guess. And then tube chart as well. You guys can hopefully see that all right. So it looks like you can see 6G2 in the top left-hand corner. And then the bottom right, we see NI. So N should be 64, I believe. I always forget off the top of my head. But either way, I will confirm when we open up the chassis. But it looks pretty good. And then tubes, a little sneak peek on the tubes. Not sure if you can even see, but we got RCA logos in orange, which is very good. So let's pull it out. All right, wow, that was insane. The baffle was so tight. That is the tightest fitting baffle I've ever experienced. That took quite a lot of effort to even put it back. So, okay, the cabinet is back together. The chassis is out of the cabinet. We're good to go. I already took the tubes out just because I was trying to make sure I didn't damage anything trying to pull it out. So basically what we had in V1, we had this vintage RCA. V2, we had this modern groove tube. So nothing really to write home about there. And then rectifier, got this 5Y3. That back in there. I guess we put all these back while we're at it. I don't know if 5Y3 is original. I need to look at the tube chart. I don't remember offhand if these had a 5Y3. I think they did instead of a GZ34. And then RCA, very nice RCA 6V6s. So these are possibly original to the amplifier. No idea on their condition or if they're healthy or not. We're not going to fire it up because we got that two-prong. And yeah, we'll get more to the circuit in a second, but for now, let's go and take a look at the transformers a little bit closer. 606 435, so that's the 35th week of 1964. So that would be original to this amp. You can actually see it stamped right there, also showing 64. This is the 39th week of 64 when that was stamped. And then the power transformer, a bit hard to read because it's black, but 606 420. That'll show for you guys. So that all looks good and original. Then we can take a look at the can cap too. Astron can cap. And it is comprised of 3 20 microfarad 450 volt caps. So with that, let's go and flip it around. This thing looks incredibly clean and first glance, all original. Yeah, I don't see anything messed with first glance. So starting the bias, all original there, original caps all throughout. So definitely going to want to replace those. The cool thing is that this is a 64 and it's got blue moldeds everywhere, which is awesome. So no Astrons. I bet all of these caps are totally fine and fantastic that they were not harvested out of the amplifier. Kind of cool on these. There's no brass plate yet for them, so they're just connected directly to chassis there. Look at the leads on that cap, that tone cap. Wow. Yeah, just a very simple circuit. Transformer all looks good. Again, see that 64 stamp there. Got somebody's signature, which is cool. Original can cap. You can see here's the original color of the 3-prong, and then here's his inside. Got all white and nasty looking. Sorry, 2-prong, not 3-prong. Death cap obviously still connected, so we will take care of that. That's interesting. Don't know. I've never had a 6G2 in before, so some of this may be very clearly all original, but I've never seen that before. Putting the grid stopper. So I guess there's no screen resistor. That's an open spot. Pin 6, if you don't know, on a 6v6 on an octal socket like this is open. So yeah, they're just running it there. Normally what you see is this will go to pin 1, and then pin 1 will have the 1.5K resistor grid stopper here, and then the grid wire will be connected to that. Or rather, the wire will be here, go through the grid stop resistor, and then it'll be connected here to pin 5, which is the control grid. Very interesting. Yeah, this thing looks fantastic. I don't see anything. Zoom in on the board a little bit. It's pretty flat, too. It's barely even curved over. So this is awesome. Okay. So we'll just go to the owner and see what he wants to do. I think we'll probably, I don't know, maybe he won't want to stuff. Maybe he'll want to stuff the caps. There's only 3 electrolytics on the board. We got the can cap, and I'll have to do another custom order for hayseed can cap because I severely doubt he's going to want to just mount them to the board here. So we'll have to do another order for that. Otherwise, I bet it's going to be pretty minimal on this thing. So really good news. I don't see any, no signs of, no signs of anything puking its guts anywhere, which is good. So I bet this amp has mostly just been sitting. Did a quick review of the resistors on this amplifier just to see if any are way out of tolerance. And they're drifting a little bit. You know, like the plate resistors here measured about 115K. That's not a problem at all. I'm sure those will be fine as long as they're not noisy. We can leave those. Some of them drifted up quite a bit. This 220K was, I think, up in the 280 range, something like that. So we'll keep an eye on that one. These were all fine. These 220Ks here, both measured very similar. They were around the 240K range, which is fine as long as they're closely matched. This one was actually pretty okay, but this one measured quite a bit out, this 1K. And then this grid stopper measured about 2K versus this one, which is about 1.5K. So we want those to match. So we're going to replace both of those. We'll replace both of these resistors, which are part of the filtering here. And then in the buy circuit, we're going to make this adjustable, just like we did with the other Princeton. Well, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to make it adjustable if we're keeping the if we're keeping the shell of the cap here. So I'll ask him about that, but we'll replace the diode for sure. And then potentially just replace the resistor, TBD on that. Though I think we'll probably end up going with a adjustable bias just because he liked the idea of that with his Princeton reverb. And then we may replace the 100K here, which was measuring high as well. So we got a few resistor swaps. We'll do kind of just a bit beefier resistors there, get rid of these, and then do that. So we'll confirm with the owner, but for now, we'll just go ahead and move forward with the capacitors. Go ahead and time-lapse through most of this work real quick. So we'll do the grid stoppers. I'll add the safety diodes to the rectifier tube socket. It's a 5Y3. I did check and confirm that is correct for this amplifier. I don't think they have as many problems as the GZ34s do, and it's a vintage tube, so it's not really quote-unquote necessary, but I don't think it hurts to add it just to be safe. I do it in pretty much every amp I get nowadays, so we'll be doing that in this one as well. And yeah, so let's get to it. All right, so we got a good amount of work done there. I'm just guessing on the value. This is what I used in the Princeton reverb, and it worked. So it's a 10K trim pot and then an 18K resistor. And then you guys can see the diode and the 100K were also swapped. Kind of see there. Also had to tighten the lamp. Very, very nice, handy little tool here to be able to reach in there. Need a specialty tool for that. I believe it was Matt, friend of the channel, that gave me this. Thank you again, Matt. I actually haven't had a chance to use it until now. First one I've run into that was loose like that. But we got all tightened up. That looks really good. So we also added in the safety diodes and the screen resistors, and then primed the power section for the 3-prong. Just need to go ahead and do that next. And then obviously we did the 1K and the 10K resistor. So let's go ahead and knock this out real quick, and then these 2 caps, and then we're done outside of waiting for this to arrive. So pretty good. Quick look at the cathode bypass cap swaps over here. So that's all done. We might have to clean this board a little bit because of conductivity. We'll see when we turn it on, but now we can go ahead and shift our focus over to the 3-prong. So Slide this back over here and get the big iron prepped, and then we'll do the chassis ground probably right about here. Got the 3-prong prepped here. So these are really tough, the Princetons, because they have a very small opening here, and I don't like drilling out a chassis. You can make it work. It's tough. The hole in the strainer leaf is really only meant for a 2-conductor wire. Obviously, we're switching to 3-prong. So what I like to use is the SVT style. So it's the thinner insulation, 18 gauge. I'll put a link in the description to where you can buy these off Amazon. And then this is kind of a handy tool to help you do it. Now it's really tough on these. You got to really squeeze it tight. So let's see if I can do it on camera. There we go. Cool. Okay, so now do the fun part and prep the big iron. Well, I've got the big iron heating up. We'll go ahead and just start prepping everything. We can go ahead and take care of the non-earth connections as well. So black is our hot and white is our neutral. So I'm going to keep these wrapped together. And then the hot is going to go to the fuse tip, and then the neutral is going to go right here, which is where the primary is. Not sure if you guys can make that out or not. But basically just an empty junction on the ground switch, which is not in circuit. So we're just going to kind of keep these wrapped together. Like that should be fine. And then we'll go there to there, and then here to here. And then we just need to make sure this one is the longest of the 3. So go ahead and cut right about there. This one cut right about here. And then you can just kind of add a little bit of solder to the very tip. That can be helpful so that the strands don't come undone. And also make it a little harder to work with because then it becomes one solid wire like it's solid core. So this one, I just want the tip. So I gotta try and squeeze it. Should remember to take the fuse out when working on the fuse. Beautiful. All right, there's the hot and the neutral done. So now we just got to work on this one. So it'll be the longest of the bunch as mentioned. So now that I have an idea of where I want it to go, I'm just going to go ahead and scratch the chassis. So we're just scoring the chassis, and I'm using a sharp flathead to do this. I'm basically just doing hash marks. And you're doing this because you want to give the solder some texture to grip onto. So now I'm just going to clean it a little bit with some isopropyl. Kind of like painting where the prep work really helps you out. Similar concept. Okay, cool. That looks good. Now, a lot of people do it differently than I do it. And they'll just kind of add solder on top. So I'm going to try that method. No. I'm going to So there's a lot of different ways to do it. Personally, I like to get some solder on there first, and then we'll add in the wire. So make sure I can get really solid connection without melting the wire as I'm trying to heat it up enough so it's a solid connection. Just my preference. So as far as tools, this is the solder I like to use for the bigger stuff, 1.5 mil. Put a link in the description to that. And then for the iron, it's a Weller SP80. And I'll put a link for that as well. Just let that sit for a bit. So now we'll just add a little bit more solder to the tip. Hot goes to the fuse tip. Fuse sleeve goes to the switch. Other end of the switch is the primary, that black wire. And then the other end of the primary goes to the neutral, which is just using the ground switch as a connecting point. If it'll focus. There you go. Hopefully you can see that. Cool. Oh, I need to move these 2 wires to 1 tab as well before I forget. All right, so 370/15 gives us about 47% plate dissipation. So we're actually not that far off. So we want to be in the 20 range. See this adjusting. How about 19? Let's see what that gives us. 57, so still a hair cool. 50% of the trim pot, so we're kind of dialed in perfect actually. 18K is right on. 62%, that's a pretty good number for me as a starting point. So awesome. And then we can see negative voltage, negative 27.8. Let's grab a guitar real quick. This thing is so quiet, I can't even hear it turned on. All right, let's grab a guitar. All right, trem works, tone works, volume works. Cool. Okay, awesome. Really happy with that. Let's go ahead and just swap the power tubes over. Make sure they're not too mismatched. Again, they're vintage RCAs, so who knows what we're getting with them. But yeah, my fingers are disgusting right now. It's hard to play guitar when you got just flux and crap all over you. And it's quite late. It's about midnight, so don't want to wake up the babies, but yeah, pretty good. So it looks like this tube is a little bit warmer, so we'll just cool down the bias a hair. About 22. Right about there. Cool. All right. Well, we'll call it a night and wait for the Hayseed Hamfest can cap to come in. And then I'll try and do a little demo of it. Very cool amp, and looking forward to playing it loud. Okay, back here at the 6G2 Princeton. Been a couple weeks for me, for you guys just a second. Waiting for the new can cap to come in. Everything else is basically done outside of just some testing. So just needing to install this and we're good to go. So we'll go ahead and breeze through the removal of the original can cap, get this in, and get to testing. So we got the filter cap replaced. That looks really good. And next steps, we'll just reconfirm the bias and then also check the output wattage, make sure the waveform looks good on the oscilloscope. I do want to note off camera, I played it a little bit. I might have recorded some of it, I don't remember. I'm not sure if the camera picked it up, but V2 ended up being bad. So the amp had a really bad kind of thumping noise, you know, even with the trem all the way down. Had some bad bleed going on. Moving the wires around the lead dress really didn't help that much, just kind of changed the pitch of it. And replacing V2 with the new JJ fixed that. So just a quick little side note. But yeah, it was sounding good, but I want to go ahead and make sure everything else is good to go, and we'll do a long-term burn-in as well before the owner picks it up. So we'll go ahead and turn it on, make sure the knobs are down, trem off. In fact, I'll put in a little shorting jack so we don't have any bleed over from the trem. So these are two vintage RCA 6v6s. We can see they're not that matched. 25 milliamps on one, 20 on the other. So let's go ahead and do the math. We're at 120 volts from the wall. And that gives us, let's see, 6v6 GT using the Rob Robinette tube bias calculator. So our plate voltage was 365 or so. And then our plate current for the hot tube was 25. So we're running a bit hot, 76%, excuse me, on that one. And then the other one is pretty cold, 20.7, 63, not cold, so that's actually kind of perfect. So yeah, it's kind of what happens when you have vintage tubes. You're gonna have a bit of a mismatch, and it's not a terrible mismatch. You know, one thing that's kind of tough with these amps specifically is the tremolo. You know, it's a bias trem, so the bias matters a lot for these to work properly. If it's too cold, it's not going to sound right. If it's too warm, you're not going to get anything. So you got to kind of find that line. I think I will maybe just cool it down a touch. That's okay. I think that's probably a good spot to be. So now we'll go ahead and check it on the oscilloscope, make sure the waveform looks good, no crazy crossover, distortion, or any of that nonsense. I'm going to be inputting a 1 kilohertz sine wave, or maybe I'll do 400. We'll do 400 hertz. So we got just a hair of crossover distortion. You can see there's just a very slight knee here. It's not totally smooth. And so that tells us the bias is just a little bit off for these tubes, but they are mismatched, which will play a role. So if I go ahead and adjust this and turn it warmer, start seeing it straighten out. Now if I go colder, you'll see it get more exaggerated. See that? So you got to kind of find the happy medium point. Right there is fairly straight. But that's probably going to be a bit too hot of a bias with these tubes because they are mismatched. So yeah, just a little point right here. So we're going to probably want to bring this back to somewhere in this range. And then we can see the output is 10.3 AC volts. We can push it a little bit more before it starts clipping. So you can see clipping on the top and bottom there. So clipping starts to happen right around here, right in that range. So right about 10 volts AC. Let's go ahead and do the math real quick on that. So we got, let's call it 10 volts times 10 volts divided by 8, 12.5 watts, which is exactly what we would expect out of this thing. So yeah, that's looking really good. Waveform looks, totally fine. And this will add in more gain or less gain with the tone control. That looks normal. We'll go ahead and check the trem on the oscilloscope as well. Okay, so we got the trem. Now let's go ahead and turn the trem on. This is just adjusting the depth control. You can see the knee coming and going as well. The bias is being adjusted as we do this. So there's max depth. I can go up in speed. You can see how that works. Go back down to slow. This is about half depth. So again, you can see the waveform start clipping and getting colder, so it's going above and below. And there we're kind of right at the edge. So cool. Everything looks good from that front. So next steps will be just, I'll reconfirm the bias since I messed with it right then. And we'll just kind of let it break in with some loops going through it. And then I will probably do a little quick demo if I can with a little, maybe my 64 spring tank, which is also a Tuxedo, and just hear how those sound together for something real quick. But okay, we're gonna go ahead and end here, and I'll pick up on the next portion.